Welcome to S Class, the highest tier in podcasting. With me, we've been using so many daddy epithets that I'm like, the daddiest of dads.
But now, daddy actually applies.
Yeah, I think we've overdone
This is a
it.
daddy-themed podcast.
Rob, give us some hot epithets about being a father.
I am the daddiest zaddy of all time. What is a zaddy, by the way?
It's like a sexy daddy, right?
Okay, so yeah, I'm the zaddy.
Oh, I thought I was the zaddy. I'm the zonkel. I'm the zonkel.
Yeah, the zonkel.
Guys, I hope we have not burned you out of the dad content, because I think we have like 6 episodes called like the big daddy of this, the daddy of that. But Rob and I today will be talking about anime and manga that you could recommend to your non-weeb dad. This was actually came to me when I was on a trip with my friend's family, and then his dad said to me, "Oh yeah, I actually listen to your podcast like when I'm driving on the road." I was like, "Really?" This is when I went to Sweden.
Why?
And he's like, "Yeah, it's pretty good. I have no idea what you're talking about, but it seems like you guys have good banter." I was like, "Thanks for being one of our 7 unique listeners, but also a little awkward." So I said, maybe I can make an episode catered to the dads out there who are supporting us, and maybe this will be useful to them.
Yeah, you see, I thought about this a little differently. So I have like 3 different things in mind. One of them is something I think my dad would enjoy. One of them is something that, as a dad, I really appreciate. And the third one is something that, as a dad, I would enjoy watching with my daughter. So those are like 3 different types of scenarios I went through.
I think that I have like 6 or 7, and they could kind of fall into those 3 different buckets. So maybe we can sort it out in that way.
All right, so we can make this work.
I want to rewind for a second before we get into our recommendations. I just wanted to talk about any experiences that you have personally had with your dad and anime and manga, or like the fact that you've been doing this for 15 years or so. And has he said anything to you?
I think he's still just like, anytime we go to, I go to Barnes & Noble a lot with my dad, and I'm always getting manga, and he's, he's just like, "Are you getting those Asian comics?" And he's not like judgmental. He's like, "Oh, that's what you're getting today, the Asian comics?" And I'm like, "Yep."
Is he like, "Rob, what is a booty royale?" What is the one that John's been into? Fufu Ijo? What is
Fufu Ijo?
Married but not in love, or something like that. Oh my goodness. So when my dad was around, he kind of handled it like the way like a dad born in the 60s and 70s would, and just sort of avoided it entirely for the most part. But the one show that he actually watched with me for a little bit, it's on Toonami. Would you venture a guess, or no idea?
From Toonami. It's definitely not in Yuasha.
No, it was not in Yuasha.
It would have to be one of the cooler ones. Maybe Yu Yu Hakusho?
That's right.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, good call. We watched Yu Yu Hakusho, the first like 15, 20 episodes up through the Genkai arc. And I think that my dad really was into it because my dad was like kind of a gangster. Like, how would you describe my father, Rob, from outside perspective?
If you didn't know any better, you would think triad, but retired triad.
Yeah, my dad was like this 5'11" 3/4. He had to let you know that part. Like balding, hairy, 240-pound Chinese dude with like a handlebar mustache.
Incredibly intimidating.
Incredibly intimidating. Had his button-down shirt down to like the 7th button, and he just like walk around like with a presence. And I think when he was a kid growing up in Hong Kong, he was like probably in a gang, actually. So when he saw Yusuke, he probably related to this kind of badass kid who beat people up. And then the Genkai arc, I think it still kept it pretty low profile, because it was just about martial arts at that point. So I think it still felt kind of cool to him.
Yeah, Yu Yu doesn't get too anime, really.
Until a little bit later.
Yeah.
I think when Rando starts turning Kuwabara tiny and they start playing baseball with fireballs and a magic sword, I think that's where he's sort of been like, "Yeah, son, this isn't me."
I'm out.
Yeah. But that was something that surprised me as a kid, that he'd watch this show with me and actually enjoy it.
That's pretty cool. Yu Yu Hakusho, I could see. That one works.
Yeah, for at least a little bit. And if they're into the fantasy stuff, then it could keep going.
Yeah, plus Yusuke's such a Chad. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah, he's so cool. Now, Rob, what were the three categories that you were talking about? And maybe we can sort it out and you can start and I'll add in the ones that I
So
have.
the first one I thought of would be something that I think my dad would actually genuinely enjoy.
Okay.
And as I was like trying to like think through, I was like, all right, what are his actual interests? Sports, yeah, but I don't think anything really works without being too shonen-y.
Right.
So then I took it to the next one. He loves James Bond, and I was like, okay, this might be it. And I was thinking Lupin the Third.
Lupin the Third crossed my mind.
Lupin the Third is so diverse in the types of like stories it tells. Like some are more serious, some are more action heavy, some are more casual, and I think there's definitely a Lupin the Third in there for my dad.
And it's also very low commitment. So he could like watch an episode with you for 20 minutes, not watch one for a month, and then be like, oh, what's Lupin and the gang up to now?
Or you could just watch a movie. There's several movies. You
Mm-hmm.
know, my personal favorite is obviously Castle of Cagliostro. I think he'd love that one because that one's like very lighthearted, very like kind of like suave and smooth and like lots of gadgets. And it's like it hits those James Bond feels that I think he'd appreciate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good choice. I mean, at one point I was thinking Spy Family, but I was like, this gets a little too cutesy, a little too anime for like an adult man to watch with his dad, I think. Maybe that might fall down to one of your later categories.
Yes.
Um, I think another one that crossed my mind was maybe Cowboy Bebop, but I said maybe that's if your dad's into sci-fi, maybe that'll work. But if not, then it might be too slow.
You see, I think what's tough is that we're coming at this from the perspective of what would like a 56-year-old boomer kind of like get into. And I think at that point, you almost have to start with like a movie.
I guess I was thinking the opposite because an hour and a half is a commitment for us. I think for a dad in their 60s is sort of a super commitment.
But on the flip side of that, it's if we're sitting down to watch a movie together, that's like a normal thing. But like sitting down to watch a few episodes of something that is maybe 12, 24 episodes, you know, you're not getting the full picture out of it. And if you like the movie, that's the introduction, that's the gateway.
Have you ever, and I've probably felt this feeling with you and our other friends before, where you're like, oh man, you have to watch this thing. And in the back of your mind, like, it's real quiet because you're watching something and no one's saying anything. And you're sort of anxiously like, do they hate it? Should I turn it off and like let them out? Or are they trying to humor me because they don't like it, but they don't want to say something? And I don't know if I could handle 90 minutes of that feeling with a parent figure of mine.
You see, sidebar for me, I never ever will ever watch anything with a person that I'm suggesting. I don't do it. I hate when somebody's like, "Hey, you want to watch this video on YouTube?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." Like, "Hey, you want to watch this TikTok?" I'm good, thanks. Like, I hate like having to feign interest because I know the person showing you something is always going to be so much more passionate about what they're showing you than you are. So I always have to pretend that I'm like as engaged and appreciative of it as them. So I will never do that to anyone else.
You have to almost like lead the horse to water and just send them the link and hope they like it. But on the flip side, our anime sage literally sat with us and watched some of our favorite things ever. So it could go either way.
That's true, but he's a different man than I am. You know,
Yeah, that's very fair. I guess a few. So I think Lupin's a great choice. A few other options that I had on there for this specific category. The first idea was Vinland Saga.
oh, I was actually thinking Vinland Saga as well. You know, I was
Okay.
going in with the mindset of like, what is something that is not too anime, you know,
Hmm.
shonen, tropey, and Vinland Saga is great. It's just a great like
It's
uh
history almost.
historical drama with some like massive action. Like it's perfect for you know your older gentleman that's just looking for something to chow down on popcorn while seeing some Vikings fight.
It's just very, for lack of better terms, just very gar, like very like manly and
Yeah,
powerful. And it's like, yeah, this is the America that I grew up in. Like not
with
these
Leif
like,
Erikson.
yeah, no twinks. These are all just like gigantic men.
Yeah,
So that's one that came to my mind. Another one, my stepdad, he really likes Criminal Minds and those types of thrillers. So one that you haven't seen yet would be Monster, and that's just something that I've said multiple times is it could very well just have been a novel, a
right.
mystery novel, and it just so happens to be a comic book and an anime. And I think that's just something that's a really well written mystery story or thriller story. And the last one I had was Vagabond, which is kind of somewhere in between where it's sort of like this historical fiction. I remember my dad used to read these like Chinese novels that were like fucking bricks of novels, all in traditional Chinese characters. And I feel like Vagabond is just a Japanese version of that.
You see, Vagabond's good too because it's a manga. It's reading, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a much lower commitment. You pick it up, you'll decide pretty early on if this is something you're comfortable with and willing to do, and it doesn't have that discomfort of like me standing over my dad as he's watching, you know,
You're saying
Dragon Ball.
you're not gonna look over my shoulder and say, "Look how dead he is."
No. I'm not pushing that.
Yeah, so those are my three that kind of fell into that category. I considered Ippo as well, but I was like, Ippo gets a little bit anime-y, where you're like, this kid is getting bullied and you have to watch him rise from the bottom. Like, it could work of all the sports ones, but I kind of decided to pull that one back.
Yeah, the sports ones were tough because they all just have too much shonen tropiness.
Mm-hmm.
At least the ones that I've engaged with.
Yeah, Slam Dunk, and Slam Dunk's a little closer than Eye Shield. Eye Shield is not viable at all.
The problem with Slam Dunk is Slam Dunk starts so hard on him being like obsessed with the girls and all that,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just like for a non-anime fan, it'll probably turn you off really quickly.
Yeah, like it takes about 35 chapters before he enters his first match, so that could definitely be a turnoff.
Yeah, but actually, now that we're talking, going back to the thought of movies, I think of all the Studio Ghibli movies, Porco Rosso might be the perfect one for like a dad.
Does that fall into your third category though?
No,
Kind of
no.
like,
This goes back to something I think my dad in particular would enjoy, like an older,
okay,
gentleman, because it's
an older Italian gentleman watching about an
yeah.
older Italian pig voiced by Michael Keaton.
Actually, the more you say, the more perfect it sounds.
I'm literally quoting you.
Well, that's why it sounds perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know. Porco Rosso feels like the best one of the Ghibli catalog because it's much more action heavy. It's much more like, even though it's a talking pig, down to earth. I think Porco Rosso would be a good one. I think Brad Garrett is in it, the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Oh, the brother, right?
The guy. What are the
plays
guys?
Ray's brother. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
yeah, I think he does.
the like comic relief villain that starts the movie.
And in a weird way, even though it's mystical in the sense that you have a pig flying a plane because he's cursed. Besides that, it's just a noir.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a noir war movie of anything.
Yeah.
Okay, now I think that's a pretty strong list. I think that might be our most jam-packed category. What would be your second category again?
So this one was for me. It's a very obvious one. The one that, like, as a dad, makes me feel the most, and that's Yatsuba. I mean, that's an easy one. Like, now that I actually have the baby here, I've gone back and like read through Yatsuba a bit again, and it's just like, I don't know. There's just something about it that just like clicks with you, where you're like, oh my god, I can't wait to see my daughter doing stupid, idiotic stuff and just being like a moron and so innocent and dumb. And Yatsuba, it's very casual, but there are moments that kind of get you in the feels, especially in the latest volume. I don't know if you've read it yet.
The backpack chapter.
Yeah, it's just like I could see that like emotion, and it's I don't know. There's just something about it that like now as a dad has that extra like twinkle to me.
I can hear you getting emotional just thinking about it. Like, oh, she's growing up so fast,
Yeah.
and it's only been like a month. Yeah, Yotsuba is a great choice, and I was thinking about that as the last category, I guess. But I guess this is something you do by yourself, so
Yeah.
that's why it kind of is more in the second bucket. The one I have for this one is a bit controversial.
Oh dear God!
Yeah, I think you know what it is.
Which one? No, wait, hang on. Is this the one where I haven't seen it, right?
Yes.
Where the guy ends up marrying his daughter?
Oh, so it's Usagi Drop.
Right.
And this is the one about a like 30-40-year-old man and this 5-year-old girl. Her dad is she's like actually the illegitimate child of like this 80-year-old man and this like 40-year-old woman. The mom disappears and the dad's old. He dies. So no one in the family, they're like, who's this girl? So then the 40-year-old man decides to adopt her. And it's a really sweet, like parenting story that I watched on a plane going to like India many years ago when I was a consultant. And I was like, oh man, this is such a sweet series. I think I've recommended it to you specifically like 10 times. And you're like, bro, isn't that the one where she like gets together with her dad at the end? I was like, no, she's like 7 at the end of the thing. And it's super sweet. Like he's he's working hard and she comes home and she gets on a stool and cooks him dinner sometimes. It's like a 5-year-old. And then I read the Wikipedia article and I was like, oh no.
What happened?
Okay, so this is what I've read. I've only watched the first season. I still think it holds real strong. But if you have that taste in the back of your mouth, you can't. um, so I would caution that. We probably ruined that for everyone already. But there's a time skip at a certain point where her neighbor boy starts like falling in love with her, and they're in high school, and she's like, "No, I don't like him." Blah blah blah. And then she's like, "Dad, I love you," or something like that. And he's like, we'll talk about it when you're older. Like, he doesn't like get together with her, but he's like, we need to put this on a shelf. But it's like, dude, you raised this child. Why would that even be a consideration?
That's what was the author thinking?
I don't. There's such backlash around this.
I would hope so.
I don't. Japan's a weird place.
Like, I know sometimes we feign like something being outrageous just because we don't want to, we're on a podcast and we don't want people thinking we're degenerates. But like, this is just genuinely one of those times where like, what were they thinking?
What if he's just trolling? What if he's like, wrote this beautiful, wholesome story? He's like, what if I did this? You know what? I'm not even angry at the author. I'm angry at the editor that let this go through.
Yeah, and the publisher that published it. Like, just there were a lot of people that let this happen.
Yeah, this would happen in a typical smut garbage hentai, but this is not what's supposed to happen in the story that led up to this.
Ridiculous.
Okay. I guess the last category is something you'd want to watch with your kids. And this one I didn't think about too much besides maybe Spy Family.
Yeah, Spy Family was one of them, but then I had to go back to, I think, the only thing I've ever actually made you watch with me, which is Polar Bear Cafe.
I think I've watched like half an episode with you.
But I'm saying, that is the only thing I've ever made you watch with me, where I was like, all right, you're going to love this, you got to watch this. And then you hated it.
No, thank you.
But what's better to start with, a young child than a very, very sweet, casual, silly, stupid slice of life with no plot and nothing actiony, nothing violent, no cursing. It's just a very fun, stupid show.
Bunch of fuzzy animals and stuff.
Yeah, it's cute, it's dumb, it's funny, it's silly. Although now that I'm thinking, though, I guess her first anime would have to be a dub because she probably can't read.
I'm sure it's fine. Although you might be cringing in the background.
I don't think Polar Bear Cafe has a dub, is what I'm saying.
I'm sure there's a DVD version of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
So that just takes us back to Spy Family, which does have a dub.
Which I'm sure is passable.
Yeah.
But in the back of your mind, you're going to be like, maybe I'll just wait until you're old enough to read. Because
you got to learn to read.
Painful for me to watch the dub.
Or she just does what I do and watches Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon on Channel 11 WB on Saturday mornings.
It would actually be quite enjoyable now that Ash is officially retired to watch the new Pokemon series from scratch with your child. Be like, I'm abstaining from Pokemon for the next 5 years while they create this new series. You'll have a whole back catalog with her as a 5-year-old.
That's an interesting choice, yeah. But do I really want her getting sucked into that world of Pokemon?
I think it'll happen naturally. Look at the way the world is going.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Pokemon is just capitalism, and I don't want her to be sucked into that like I am.
You're already too far deep. What are your thoughts as a new father about your child being a weeb?
You see, I don't want to make that happen. I think if she comes to me and has interest, I will say, no, don't do this to yourself. And then if she really persists, I will say, please don't be an idiot. This will ruin your life. And then if she really, really persists, I'll say, I'm 35 years old. This is 5 years from now. I'm 35 years old and have an anime YouTube channel with like maybe 1,200 subscribers.
Hey,
please don't
relax.
do this.
Relax about that 1,200.
So I'd say that's where I'm at.
So you don't think that your daughter over the course of her childhood would be like, "Hey dad, why do you always sit in that chair in that room full of thousands of comic books?" You don't think she'll question and be impressed by that?
No,
Not
no, that's
impressed
gonna.
not impressed in the sense that she's like, "Wow, you're amazing, dad." Impressed by like impressionable.
My office is gonna have a lock on it.
Dad's hiding bad stuff in there. You can't go in there, kids.
And it's worse than you could ever imagine. It's Asian comics.
Asian comics. Gotta get grandpa to scare her away. Don't look at daddy's Asian comics. Oh,
All I know is I'm gonna make sure that I don't have my like degenerate like smut rom-com mangas on my bottom shelves.
Daddy, what's a Nagatoro? Do you think you would have treated this differently if you had a boy?
You see, that's tough too, because I think I'd be more likely to engage in it with him, but then on the yeah, you know what? I think definitely would have been different, especially now in the current day and age where like most kids are reading anime and manga. Like if this was 15 years ago when you and I were still in school and like we were considered losers for watching anime and
You
like
don't want to send them down that path.
when John and I like had to like garner up the courage to walk into the card store to buy a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards like because we were so like embarrassed for some reason like back then like then I'd be like no I'm not gonna introduce this to a son, but like now like all the kids are doing it anyway.
The way I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I need someone I can beat. So if it's gonna be my 5-year-old child, then so be it. I'd be like, here's a deck. I made it. It's garbage, but we're gonna duel right now.
Anything to give you a win.
Yeah, I need it on my record.
Man, that's pathetic.
Well, Robert, is there anything else that you'd like to say from our recommendations to all those dads out there?
You know what, dads? Give yourself some smut. Allow yourself to have
where I thought this was going.
allow yourself to engage with it. You know what? Bring it in. You watch My Dress Up Darling. You
Oh no, this is not what I thought.
you look at those bikini clad women and
Rob,
you have
no.
fun with it. You enjoy yourself.
There goes our subscriber
what?
count.
Go straight into the degeneracy. Forget about the noirs, the action, the spy thrillers.
And that's our episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening to S Class as always. If you guys have any thoughts or questions, feel free to shoot us an email at sclasspodcast@gmail.com. And you know what? Might as well lean into it too. Go watch that smut.